Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be talking about how I got my fire back for God. In my last video, I mentioned how I didn't think I was coming back to YouTube. I thought I was going to leave the videos that I had up and that would be that. And I didn't know when I posted my last video that that was going to be the last one for a while. I thought, okay, I'm just skipping this week and I'll be back next week. I'm like, okay, I'll be back the next week. And then it just went a long time where I didn't post at all. And then I didn't have the desire to do it anymore. And it started at the end of 2020 where I didn't have the desire to pray as much. I mean, I still wanted to pray, but I just found it really hard to pray. But then moving into 2021, it became harder. It was still hard to pray, but I also lost the desire to pray. I didn't even want to do it anymore. And also with that is like less of a desire to share about God. And going into the summer of 2021, I became really jaded with the things of God. There was a few weeks where I just wanted to do me. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to put everything God had called me to the side, everything that God had called me to do to the side, and just focus on building my career, just focusing on doing me and building life the way I wanted to do it. Even when I would run into friends that knew that I was posting these videos and I was sharing about God, I was and they'd ask me about it, I was kind of embarrassed. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I did that. I used to do that. And I would be embarrassed about it. And I'd be like, yeah, but like, I'm not doing that anymore, and like brush it off. And that's just really where I was. Even like friends and family would ask me about like, oh, are you gonna like get back to posting those YouTube videos? And it's like, I know God has called you into doing so much. And I would kind of just brush it to the side and be like, yeah, like that's what like was supposed to happen, but I'm not on that path anymore. But towards the end of the summer, I was asking God, I'm like, God, I want to get back to having a deep relationship with you. I don't want to end this year like this, because a relationship with God was still important to me. It just was no longer a priority. Like I was still reading my Bible, but I just wasn't spending time praying, and I wasn't spending time, like I wasn't spending quality time with God. But my relationship with God was still more important to me than it ever had been before. Before I never had a relationship with God, but I just didn't want to do what God wanted me to do anymore. And I just wanted to do my own thing. I no longer wanted to be in a place of surrender. But yeah, towards the end of the summer, I asked God, I was like, God, I don't want to end the year like this. One of my prayers when I first got close to God was, never let me say that I used to be on fire for you. And really, that's the place that I was in. And so I started asking God, I was like, I don't want to end the year like this. I want to grow closer to you. I want to be on fire for you. I can't go into another year with a relationship like this. And I went at the beginning of October. I went to a group of like a young adults gathering where they gather the first Friday of every month. It's in my church, and I went for the first time in October. And I don't remember what the main discussion was about, but a lot of the people there and a lot of leaders there, they were talking about how their hearts had grown cold for God. But there were also people there that you could see they were on fire. And I was looking at them, I'm like, man, I remember when I used to be like that for God. There were a lot of people there that said their hearts had grown cold. And then the leader of the group, he prayed over us and prayed over anyone that was struggling with their hearts growing cold for God. And I remember sometime during that month, and this wasn't something that happened overnight, but I do remember sometime during that month, I woke up around 5 a.m. and I started watching videos from Better Together YouTube channel. And Better Together is a channel where different women are brought on and they talk about the things of God. And I remember something shifting that night where like my desire to spend time with God was returning. And I started watching sermons again, and I started praying again. And I remember when I went back to that group at the beginning of November, that I realized how much had changed. I was no longer jaded, and I was desiring to seek God first. I was desiring to put God's things first again. And I wasn't fully back to where I used to be, but I could see that there was growth and there was change. And then I remember I started to desire to get back to sharing about God and to posting these YouTube videos. And God was just really working in me towards the end of the year, and I really felt like my prayers being answered, where my heart was on fire for God again. And it was a journey, but that's really how I got my fire back for God. Just asking God and like being in community, like really getting in that group of like young adults and like seeing other people on fire for God really helped me. again. So what does this mean for you? If you're in that place where your heart has grown cold for God, I think two things that are really helpful is one, to ask God and to be in community where people can pray for you, and you can also like catch the fire of other people. In my very first video that I posted about how I came into a relationship with God, I talk about how I literally caught somebody else's fire, and I'll link that video at the end. And another thing that's, like I mentioned, that's really important is asking God. And in my video where I talk about how to stop being a lukewarm Christian, I talk about how you need Christ to be like Christ, and I'll also link that video at the end. But there are two scriptures that I want to share about asking God, and the two which I think can be really helpful when it comes to asking God to get back into the secret place, is Psalm 145 verse 18, and it says, "The Lord is close to all who call on him, yes, to all who call on him in truth." And the other one is Psalm 27 verse 4, which says, "The one thing I ask of the Lord, the thing I seek most, is to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, delighting in the Lord's perfection and meditating in his temple." And one thing I really love about these two scriptures is that it talks about asking God to get into the secret place, asking God to help me spend time with him, asking God to help me delight in his presence. And like, we really need to ask God for help to get into that secret place, to get into his presence. And so, yeah, if you can get in community and if you can be asking God and getting people to pray for you, I really believe that the fire will return.